recording. Okay, my technology is working so far. Okay, so that's good. Okay, any papers we get from class, I'll post it on the chat so you'll all have it, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Fran, nice to meet you.
Very nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, amazing, okay. Technology works. Okay, let's get started.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Refreshments, coffee, there's tea up there on the machine, okay?
I love how you put grapes. It's like cookies, cake, oh grapes, healthy. Who wants the grapes? You have the good stuff.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna get started. We will start by, oh, you're joining us, that's so nice.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if man
Then
Of course you
we'll
are.
make an exception.
out loud.
Oh, yeah? Oh,
Oh, there are a bunch of people on Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Usually men, now women and men are also.
Because you
Okay.
enjoy, because you said
Oh, yeah.
for both.
So this is the month of Adar. It's a Jewish month, and it's a double month of Adar because it's a Jewish leap year. So out of any month that's double, it's Adar. And Adar, it says that when you enter this holiday of Adar, you should increase in joy. And as you go deeper and deeper in the month, or in the 60 days, you're supposed to become more joyful. But if our joyfulness and our happiness is contingent on the things in our life, it's very difficult to stay on that realm of happiness all the time. So therefore, I brought here tonight Diane Lang to help us stay in this consistent happiness place, regardless of what goes on around us, regardless of what we're going through. How do we stay consistently in a good place? And this is exactly what I think being Jewish is all about, is turning into our Judaism, turning into our soul, finding the balance, bringing the balance to us, grounding ourselves, and living in that peaceful way no matter what's happening. So Diane Lang has been speaking here. I just realized how long she's been speaking here. I met her when her daughter was 13, and I just thought her daughter's going to stay in high school forever, but now her daughter's 19 in college, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know where the time went. So Diane's been sharing with us, and she's, just not only just a lovely human being who practices what she preaches. Last class we had on Zoom, and oh, by the way, she had like the flu/COVID, and she was still teaching. I'm like, okay, I guess this is what teaching about happiness and being, a happy coach of all about optimism and positive psychology. This is what it does to you. So she's a therapist and she teaches, and we're just very grateful for her to be part of our community and to come and share with us. So welcome, Diane. Thank you again. And
Can you guys see me okay? Or hear me? Just want to make sure. I'm like, hi, go too close and it'll look really bad.
yeah.
Especially now that I realized how old I am, now that I've known you since my daughter was 13 and now she's 15. That means I aged.
We see you and we hear you, Diane.
Hi, everybody. Well, thank you for joining me via Zoom or in person. Thank you, guys. Most of you know me by now, so I won't even go into anything. I think you all know me. Being that I've been here now I can't believe that just made me really old. Now I'm going to go home and cry. And I'm here for happiness. But the aging part I don't like. So welcome, everybody. We're going to do a little bit of a discussion on positive psychology. And usually when I talk about happiness, I talk about the habits which you have in front of you. And if you're on Zoom and you want the habits, you can email me and I will send them to you because you're not here. So I can email you all of the information so you have it. But today I wanted to go over something a little different. I wanted to go over the actual science, PERMA is what they call it, that covers everything we need to be happy. So everything I'm going over today comes from positive psychology, which would be Dr. Martin Seligman, and the science has been here since 1998. So everything I'm talking about you can find if you want to research a little bit. So what Dr. Martin Seligman does is he figured out this abbreviation is just called PERMA, and every initial stands for something we need to be happy. So I just want to start off saying happiness is an inside job. If we're looking for happiness anywhere else, if we're looking for it outside of ourselves, we're not going to find it. It has to be found in here. And that is really a hard thing for a lot of people to hear, because a lot of times we think we can find happiness if we get on the hedonic treadmill and we get these things we want. If we live in the perfect area, if we have the great car, we have the jewelry, we get the title that we want, and we have the job we want. It doesn't really work like that, believe it or not. There are a few things that we really need to cultivate happiness for ourselves, but in general, it is an inside job. So if you're thinking that you feel very negative, you're having low self-worth, low confidence, that's going to weigh in on your happiness, and those are the things you want to work on first, if that is an issue. Thinking about that, because for most people, when it's confidence, self-worth, self-esteem, we end up in a negative rumination, a negative spiral. So if you find yourself going that way, that's something a little deeper, you want to deal with that, because when we have that so low self-worth, low self-confidence, it's hard to be as happy as you want to be. So just on that note, and that would be more of a counseling issue, but I always want to throw that out there because I've had clients, especially in the last 2 years in COVID, come to me and actually come in, book a session, well, come on Zoom, and actually say they're not there for themselves. They're there because they want to make somebody else happy. Or they're watching somebody that they love be not happy, and they're like, how do I fix them? I always get that, how do I fix? You know, what do I do? And the truth is we can't fix anybody, and I hate that word, but it's the truth. We can't cultivate somebody's happiness for them, and it's not our responsibility to do it. And if you try, it's just going to make you more frustrated. It has to be the person's choice to do it. So going along with this, the first one up here for the P, which is positive emotions, is one of the things that we can actually cultivate on our own. And I love this because positive emotions not only cultivate happiness, but they also are one of the largest factors for positive aging. And now that I realize how old I am, I'm really excited about this one. So positive aging also falls under positive psych, and these factors that create happiness also help us age well. Because one of the things we learn about aging, when we discuss aging, we always discuss physical, which is really important. But the truth behind what makes you happy as you age is your belief system. What you think aging looks like, what it's going to feel like, will you have purpose, meaning. So all of that is really important, and it all matches up with the happiness. So with positive emotions, when we have like a daily diet or a daily dose of positive emotions, we actually live up to 7 years longer, healthier, and happier. It's huge to have an extra 7 years of health and happiness, because it's really not about the number you live to, it's what kind of health and how you feel about yourself. So positive emotions would be the way you think about diet, right? When we talk about diet, we always say you should have this many veggies, this much fruit, you know, this much grains. Same thing for emotions. So if you want to have happiness and you want to cultivate it, the more positive emotions you have, the happier you are. The issue with this is that negative emotions are stronger than positive emotions. And this is one of the biggest issues. So this is, I know if you guys can't see on Zoom, I'm sorry. So this is the ratio. You need three positive emotions to balance out one negative. That's how much stronger negativity is. And the reason behind that is we all have a negative bias. Everybody has it. It's genetic, it's inherited, and it really tends for us to lean towards the negative, notice the negative, and get stuck in the negative. Now, I also want to throw out here, when we talk about negative emotions like stress, anxiety, fear, worry, being overwhelmed, we call them negative, but in all honesty, they're really not negative. They're intense, they're dark, but they're natural and normal, and we need them. We need to feel them, and we're going to have them. So I don't want you to think these are negative emotions, push them aside, pretend they don't exist, because if we don't feel them, they will stay there, we'll internalize them, they'll ruminate, and they'll cause problems 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road. So we need to feel them. But we don't want to just be stuck in the negativity. So to switch that over, we need the positive emotions. So think about, how can I get as many positive emotions in one day? So I put up a few, and I'm just putting up a few positive emotions. There's so many of them, but think about how you can get them. So the first one I put up here is kindness. So kindness is one of the best emotions, and why I like kindness is one of my favorites, is it cultivates happiness. So if I do a random act of kindness, this is how simple it is to do kindness. If I pay it forward or do random act of kindness, whatever it is, I get a boost of happiness that lasts 24 to 72 hours. the person I do it for actually gets the same boost of happiness. So it's a win-win on both sides. The other thing that kindness does is every time you do a random act or you pay it forward, you actually get a boost of confidence. And that's huge. We actually start feeling more confident. And random acts of kindness are very simple. So it could just be a compliment. It could be a smile, which I love now because which is something we couldn't do. And for 2 years, one of the things I was hearing from a lot of clients was, it's so depressing. Like I'm not seeing anybody's nonverbals, their reactions. And it was really hard for the kids. And I know we had to do it for safety, but it affected us emotionally. So just by smiling, and this is one of the exercises now that we can actually see each other and we're going out and kind of hitting a new norm, is they just did it. If you could smile, you can't see that, but they're smiling at each other. This is kind of weird trying to talk into Zoom and everybody. So I'm like, so sorry, somebody's getting left out. There's no winning on this one. But when you just smile at 10 people a day, that simple, just a nice smile, it actually is a random act of kindness. And the reason is, you saw how you two were smiling at each other. It actually made me smile. It's actually contagious. Scientifically, when you smile, everybody else smiles with you, even if they don't want to. And I still remember one of my friends being like, I hate when you smile because it makes me smile. And I'm in a bad mood and you're ruining my bad mood. And I'm like, well, sorry.
If you have a mask, you smile, does it still affect other people?
So this is the thing. When you wear a mask, and what I've noticed, you see it right here in the eyes. If you look, right?
Yeah.
You can see, yeah. If you do this, and if I, I know this is weird, right? If I smile, you can see this, but you have to look. And I know when we first started wearing masks, a lot of people didn't notice that. You actually had to start. And what we've learned to do with masks is say hi. But when you smile, even if they don't see it, you still get the boost of happiness. If you say hi and they kind of know that you're smiling, yes, you will. So smile, let's see, can we all see? Yeah, you're a little bit, right. You can see a little bit, but it is much harder to do it, to notice it. So smile at 10 people a day, say hi, give a compliment, ask somebody how they're doing. That's a random act of kindness. It's that easy. And the more we put out kindness, I really hate to say this because I wish it was a different world, but in the world we live in, which is so negative lately with the pandemic, with, well, we went to war today. You know, we didn't, but we know the world went to war today. You know, whatever's going on, it's very easy to fall into that. So the more we spread kindness, the better everybody is. And one of the things, talk about a little bit with aging, when we hit midlife, which is 40 to 65, it's a long process, that 40 to 65. The one thing that shifts for us as humans is when we're younger, we're more concerned about ourselves, right? Teens, tweens, even my college students, very concerned about themselves, and that's what you're supposed to be. Then you start hitting young adulthood, you're in your mid-20s, 30s, and you're concerned about your family and the people close to you because you're raising a family. You might be in the sandwich generation, taking care of your parents. Then we hit 40 and above, and our thought process shifts, and what makes us happy is taking care of others. And the question turns from, how can I be happy in my family, to how can I make this a better world? How can I serve better? What can I do to make this world a better place? And we're actually happier and healthier when we start thinking outside of just our circle, which is really important. So the more you help others, not only do you feel it, everybody feels it. The next one is gratitude. And I think all of you know that I am a gratitude person. I feel it's a huge superpower, gratitude. And the reason behind gratitude is gratitude's very powerful. It does a few things. So gratitude cultivates happiness. It's a positive emotion. Gratitude also cultivates mindfulness. And I put mindfulness down here. And the reason being is mindfulness is the only natural way to de-stress. Natural. There is no side effects of mindfulness. So when we do gratitude, we're naturally de-stressing while cultivating happiness. The other part about gratitude that's important is it shifts how you see the world. It shifts your perspective. So you actually can start seeing even good in a bad situation or purpose in a painful situation. And when you can start seeing that, you actually start building resiliency. And that is really important because as we've seen, in the world, the one thing we do need is resiliency, because the only constant in the world is change. So the more you're grateful, the more you build that resiliency. And the other thing with kindness is the more you either pass on kindness, become a kinder person, the more compassion you go out there, because self-compassion, compassion, and kindness all work hand in hand. So you get a lot of bonuses. So with the kindness, it's random acts of kindness or pay it forward. With gratitude, it's doing a gratitude journal. Do any of you do a gratitude journal? All right, everybody has homework here, and you guys on Zoom, you too? I want everybody to start doing this tonight. You don't have to write if you don't like writing, but every night before you go to bed, I want you to think, what are a few things I am grateful for that happened today? I want you to start looking through your day for the little gifts, the little blessings, the little miracles. Because when we start noticing the little things, it starts shifting how we see. It's a perspective, and happiness is a perspective. It's, do you choose to see the glass half full or the glass half empty? It's up to you, but gratitude actually shifts what you start looking at. And at night is really important, because a lot of us right before bed start thinking about our day. Do any of you kind of analyze your day right before you go to bed? You start thinking, I should have done this. Did I get this done? Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I was late. And you start analyzing the negative. And whatever you're thinking about 20 to 30 minutes before you go to bed affects if you sleep. How you sleep, meaning how do you dream, and what mood you wake up in the morning. So by doing gratitude at night, you'll sleep better, because it's mindfulness, and mindfulness helps us sleep. It kind of declutters the stress, removes the negativity, so you don't have that before bed, so you can dream better, wake up in a better mood. And it starts shifting what you notice, which will actually start retraining your brain to go from negative to positive. So if you can do anything, these two are important. So gratitude, kindness. The next is accomplishment and pride. And those are big. So there's two really easy ways to get accomplishment. So very simply, and some of you probably do this already, do all of you make your bed? All right, you're making your bed tomorrow. So the reason
What would you like to watch?
You don't make your bed? I understand that. I only do it because I actually know what it does. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it either. So I get that. Oh, you just told on him.
But I listened to it.
So now this is where you should all make your bed. It's a 30-second thing to make your bed, and it's a military. Believe it or not, we've learned this from the military. Oh, you know this one? You learn it from the military. They make them make their bed because it brings you feelings of accomplishment and pride. And it's how you start your day. So just by making your bed, start your day on the right foot, and it should be part of your routine. And having routines keeps us happy and gives us balance. So making your bed, which takes 30 seconds, literally gives us that accomplishment and pride. Outside of making your bed, at night, after you've said your gratitude, you're going to ask yourself another question, which is, what are a few things that I did well today? Now that's different than gratitude. Like, I'm grateful that it's not going to snow till midnight. I would love to say I had some control over that, because it would never snow if I had control. Just want to tell you, it would be 75 degrees here all year round if I was in control. All right, maybe a little hotter, but some of you wouldn't like that. And we'd all have chocolate every day without calories. But I am not in control of any of that. But I'm grateful, because then we can come out. We don't have to worry about driving. So that's gratitude. But what I did well are the things I put the effort into, the things that I did the work. And again, a lot of us never notice that. Like, I can sit down and say, tell me 10 things you don't like about yourself, and you'd probably hand me back a list of 50. If I said, give me a list of the things you like about yourself, I have clients who could sit there for weeks and think of maybe a handful. We always look at the negative. So by starting to see what you did well, it brings up the accomplishment and pride, positive emotion, but it also works hand in hand with gratitude to retrain your brain. So both of those questions together actually start the shifting process to retrain and reframe what you notice. So kind of works the same way CBT does, cognitive behavior therapy. It's reframing what you look at, reframing what you see and how you see it. So by putting those two questions together, whether you write it, say it out loud, say it in your head, however you want to do it, I try to have my clients write it because then it becomes part of their routine. And when we write things, we kind of tend to retain it and remember it. But if you don't like writing, don't do it. Then just say it to yourself, say it out loud, however you want to do it. But those two together will actually start the shift. And that's really important. And again, doing gratitude and the accomplishment at night, starting to have your night routine. And again, the two things we really want for routines is you want a morning routine and you want an evening routine. And they could be very little things in there. They don't have to be this 20-minute long, because I know a lot of us, we're getting our kids ready, we're going to work. It's a lot going on, but just having a few things that we do every morning and every night literally creates more balance and happiness. So if you can do that, make your bed, do some of those questions at night, you already have a little bit of a morning and an evening routine. Next is joy or happiness. When we use joy, some people don't like the word. And when I use happiness, some people don't like the word. So I'm going to put them both out there. And whichever way you want to look at it, but thinking about what cultivates happiness for you. And this is a tough question because, again, for a lot of us, we don't remember what makes us happy. And I know that sounds kind of silly. Oh, it doesn't. Okay. Because usually some people look at me, but when we do the research on this, especially 30s and up, don't know what makes them happy because they know what makes everybody else happy. We become nurturers, caretakers, especially women. We are kind of raised to take care and make sure everybody else is okay. So people will say, well, I know what makes my kids happy. And I still remember the one person in research when we were doing it who stood up and said, I have 4 kids and I can tell you a list of what makes every one of them happy. I can tell you what makes my husband happy, my best friend, my parents, and my boss. Me, no clue. And it's because we have put everybody else's happiness above our own. And that's a really, it's a normal thing to do because we're raised like that. But what happens is then we don't have self-care. And when we don't have self-care and we don't take care of ourselves, we tend to burn out. And this is the thing that I hear from people. Well, I'm not a caregiver. Why would I have self-care? So if you're a parent, you're a caregiver. It's that simple. If you have kids, you're a caregiver. Even fluffy kids, they count too. But if you have kids, if you have parents you're taking care of, if it's your career, social worker, nurse, counselor, educator, teacher, anything like that, you're a caregiver. And we can't give what we don't have. So if I'm constantly taking care of you and not taking care of me, I'm eventually going to hit burnout. And burnout is where I get to a place where I'm emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually fatigued. I'm burnt out. I can't do more. And that can last for a few days. It could go into a few months. We don't want to hit that. And the way to prevent that is to have self-care. And self-care is preventative, believe it or not. And self-care is all about you, because self-care is done for you, by you. It's not from anybody else. And there's a difference between self-care and self-soothing. That is something I want to put out there. Self-soothing helps you immediately. So if I'm stressed and anxious, maybe I'm nervous because I have to public speak, because obviously I don't mind, but I do remember when I first started public speaking, I was throwing up in the bathroom. That's how nervous I was. And my students tell me they'd rather die than public speak. It's that scary to them. And with Zoom, teaching online, students don't even want to put their camera on because they don't even want to see themselves. Like, it could be that scary for people. So if you're self-soothing, you're doing something in the moment that makes you feel good for that moment, maybe for 24, 48 hours. So maybe you do some deep breathing. Maybe you go and get a massage, you get your nails done. Those are all great things. Take a hot bath, have a cup of tea. But they self-soothe, they calm you down, they make you feel good, but they don't go to the root of the problem. Self-care goes to the root. Self-care is about self-evaluating. Who am I? What do I want? What's important to me? What are my priorities? What do I value? And that shifts all the time because we're always changing. So we need to self-evaluate. Self-care is your basic needs. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you de-stressing, doing mindfulness, meditation, whatever it is that you do? That's self-care. Do I have routines that keep me consistent in my happiness? So when you think about what makes you happy, it should be things that are done for you, by you, that make you feel good, that it doesn't matter if they're for anybody else. And again, that's not selfish. Selfish is not the same as self-care. Self-care is done for you so I can take care of everybody else. Because if I burn out, I can't do anything for anybody. I'm no good. And because moods and emotions are contagious, if I'm always constantly cranky, irritable, snappy, people are walking around on eggshells near me, I'm actually making it worse for my family than better, because now my mood's becoming theirs. So what brings you happiness? No matter what, whether it's snowing, whether it's 80 degrees, whether you feel great, you don't feel good, you slept well, you didn't sleep well, you had a fight with your friend, whatever it is, what makes you happy no matter what? And well, for me, it's chocolate. I don't know what yours is, but there's nothing like having chocolate and peanut butter. There's some kind of mix with that. It's just, but it's not Reese's. They're not good anymore. Anybody notice that Reese's did not taste the same? You got to go to the Dove dark chocolate. Everybody go get Dove dark chocolate with peanut butter. Oh my God. You all thank me tomorrow. Take away the calories. I don't know how, but minus that, super good. But what makes you happy?
Is that self-care or is that selfish?
That's self-soothing.
Because it's hard to.
It is self-soothing. You know what self-care would be? The routine. Self-care would be gratitude. Self-care would be, I work out every day. Every day. Even if I hate it and I'm not in the mood, it might just be a walk. Some days it's weightlifting, whatever it is. Self-care would be making sure my diet's good, making sure I have enough water every day. That's self-care. Self-care is de-stressing. So maybe I write in a journal every day. Maybe I meditate every day. And self-care is preventative, because we can't live a stress-free life, but when we manage it well, then when it hits us and it comes our way, because it will, we'll be more resilient and quick about it, and we'll be self-aware enough to notice it and what we need. So, but chocolate's just my answer to everything. It works. The next is interest and curiosity. Very easy positive emotions to get. Learn something new. That easy, learn something new. So part of my morning routine, which I love, and I started for COVID, and this is one of my silver linings of COVID, because, well, I didn't have to commute for an hour sitting in traffic. So I would actually wake up the same time and do this every morning, whether I read it or I watch a video, depending on how much time, and that doesn't have to be a limit. It doesn't have to be like 20 minutes or 5 minutes. It's whatever you have time for. I learn something new every day, whether I watch a video or I read a book or a magazine. I make sure I learn something new every day. Now, what I love about that is every time I learn something new, it actually inspires me. So I get inspiration, and every time you're inspired, you get hope. So you added just so many positive emotions when you learn something new. It also adds variety, which is a real happiness factor. As we need variety, we get bored very easily. So learn something new. Whether it's a language you want to learn because you're going to travel, whether you're cooking something. For me, it's usually, I'm very interested in like epigenetics and self-help stuff. So I'm watching and reading stuff all the time. But every day that I do that, it inspires me. And it does make you more creative. Every time you learn something new, you get creativity and variety, more factors of happiness. But that's an easy way to get interest and curiosity right there. So just learn something new. And it could be as easy as a TED Talk. Do you guys watch TED Talks? Great way. They're 10 minutes, 18 minutes. It doesn't have to be that. And you can watch just a 10-minute clip and then watch more tomorrow, read a 5-minute article. Doesn't have to be much. Learn something new. The next is flow. So we're moving out of positive emotions. Those are some, and again, there's way more positive emotions. I just put a few up there, otherwise we'd be here for hours. Remember, you need at least 3 to balance out your negative. Just remembering that. So the more you get, the happier you are. The next is we need flow. So flow, the best way to think of flow is a state of mind where you are doing an activity that you love, whatever that activity is. For some people, it's drawing, it's artwork, it's cooking, it's painting. I can't believe people really get flow out of, cleaning, but there are people who do love to clean. I don't know who those crazy people are. If you're one of them, come to my house. I got plenty of flow if anybody wants. But baking, whatever you love, or it could be a sport. For some people, it's a sport. But when you do this activity, you know it's flow because you love it so much. It challenges you just a little bit, not too much that you get overwhelmed or you want to give up because it's too challenging, but enough that it keeps you interested as well as that you love it. And because all your attention and your focus and concentration is on that activity and you're enjoying it and you're challenged, you get that flow where you get that sense of timelessness that you're like, oh, I'm going to just, I'm just going to organize. Because I had a client tell me today, organizing gives her flow. Wow, really? All right, who's coming over tomorrow? I got plenty of that you can do. I'm the total opposite. And she's like, every time I go to organize some, she goes, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do 20 minutes. She goes, it's 2 hours later. She goes, I didn't even hear the phone ring and I realized how much time passed. That's flow. You get a sense of timelessness. And because you're so immersed in the activity, you don't have any other thoughts going on. You don't hear any of the negativity. You don't hear the rumination. You're immersed in that. So what happens is when you go into flow, you actually get out of autopilot. So if you're having a day that you have a problem you need solved and you can't solve it, no matter what you try, or you've had the same problem for weeks and every time you think about it, you keep thinking about it in the same way and you keep coming up with the same solutions that don't work, do something that causes flow. Whatever it is, spend some time there, because when you're in flow, you're not on that autopilot and your brain starts thinking different on its own and you get problem solved without thinking about it. Like I get flow from walking. I don't know if anybody likes, going for a walk. Obviously not in the cold out in this weather, but when it's nice out. And if I go for a walk, I put my music on, I just go for a walk and I don't try to problem solve, all of a sudden I'll get ideas and creativity and you get solutions because you're not thinking on autopilot, where you just think the same way over and over again. So if you need creativity, if you need ideas, you need problem solving, go do something that causes flow. Flow, if you put that in, flow cultivates happiness, but it also cultivates mindfulness. So it's another superpower like gratitude. So thinking about what causes flow for you and adding that into your schedule, no matter what it is, making sure it's in there. The next one is positive relationships. So this is a big one because, well, I hate to say this, but people are our biggest stressors. They really are. And a lot of times it's family. So thinking about this, we need to have positive relationships. Reason being, number one factor of happiness, socialization. I've said that before. Number one factor of depression, besides mental illness, is loneliness and isolation. So that was probably one of the biggest things with COVID. We isolated. And that was probably one of the biggest, besides fear. Fear and the isolation was causing probably just as much problems as the illness. We are in a mental health crisis from this. That has not gone away. So socialization, you need community, which you guys have here being part of, Chabad of Randolph. So you already have community. Having fun, which is your joy, your happiness, your self-care, and your support. And support is one of the biggest things. So you can't heal, you can't grieve, you can't forgive alone. We're social creatures. Even if you find yourself an introvert where you only have a very limited amount of people that you want to spend time with, we still need a few people that we have unconditional support. And that's the key, is unconditional. People that we know love us, who don't judge us and wouldn't abandon us when we self-disclose what's going on in our lives. So these have to be people that have earned that spot. So they're not, we don't want to self-disclose to just a stranger and tell them everything. We need people that have earned that trust and respect and who we can actually share what's going on in our lives without being judged or abandoned. Doesn't mean they won't tell us the truth and what we're doing that's unhealthy, but they won't leave you or judge you for it. And we need that. If we don't have that, we don't have that sense of belonging either. And that's part of it. So emotionally, we need to have a sense of belonging and acceptance. So we need to accept ourselves, which is very hard, but we also need that sense of belonging where we have a few people, just a few. It doesn't have to be a lot. And again, if you're an extrovert or an introvert or a mix of both. A lot of us are a mix of both. So when you have that introvert, you might just need a few people. For some extroverts, you might need more, but we all need at least one or two people. It could be your kids, your spouse, your parents, your friends, professionals, but we need somebody that gives us that support. We need that. Without it, we don't feel loved. We don't feel heard. We don't feel understood. The support person gives us the empathy we need, and we need that. So with that, we now have to think about removing the toxic people from your life. And this is a big one. So there's a difference between toxic and negative, and I just want to take a minute to go through that. So you have a negative person in your life, like negative Nancy, Debbie Downer. We named my husband Mike, Miserable Mike, because he's always in an unhappy mood. Any of those. So when people are negative, they still have a big heart. They still will be there for you. If you ask them, you know, for something, they'll be there. If you tell them your problem, they'll listen. But they see the glass half empty. And they're pessimists, or as they call themselves, realists. Nobody really uses pessimist anymore. They just say realists. But if you have too many negative people, that becomes an issue because, again, moods and emotions are contagious. And again, negativity is stronger. So if you go into a group of people and they're all negative and you think you're going to lift them, they're going to bring you down before you lift them up. So just going to put that out there. But a toxic person is completely different. A toxic person actually affects your health. So a toxic person, and I'm going to give you some generalizations of what a toxic person looks like, but everybody is different. So what might be toxic for me might not be toxic for you. So a toxic person in general is somebody who we always say has like narcissistic traits. And what we mean by that is they're very self-absorbed, selfish, not self-care, everything is wrapped around them. They're very manipulative, judgmental, harsh. They're always surrounded by drama and chaos. One of the biggest clues is they're always a victim. Nothing is their fault. They don't take responsibility. They don't take accountability. They're the victim. That is one of the biggest ones you'll see. And when you don't revolve your life around them, they get annoyed, they get mad, or they'll eventually walk away. Toxic people, you can't win. So if you're trying to change them or thinking they're going to change, it's not going to happen unless they choose to. Everybody has the ability to change, but whether they will or not, that's a whole different story. The other thing is if you have people in your life who have mental illness who are not treated. Now, if somebody's treated, you probably don't even know they have generalized anxiety or bipolar or whatever. But if they're not getting help, whether that's medications, counseling, the mix of both, that can end up being toxic because mental illness is a very self-absorbed illness. They don't mean it. There's no intention behind it to do this, but they get so wrapped up in their own pain and misery that they can't see outside themselves. So those are a few things. But with a toxic person, it actually affects your health because they make you so stressed that it actually makes you physically sick. And the way you know somebody's toxic for you is how they make you feel when you're around them. When you see them, when they call, when they text, somebody even talks about them, you're going to feel it on your body. Because we all have that mind-body connection. So when we're stressed, angry, hurt, upset, worried, fearful, what do you feel on your body? Because that person will always cause those feelings. And that's how you know somebody's toxic for you. The other thing is, and somebody asked me this the other day in a session, said, I've been friends with somebody for, 25 plus years. And it was never a toxic relationship till recently. Is that possible? Yes. You can have a really good relationship with somebody for 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, and something shifts in that person's life and they're no longer the same person. And the same for you as well. So thinking about that, even though you have a long lasting relationship and there's a lot of nostalgia and memories, they can become toxic. If you have toxic people in your life, you need to think about, can you break up with them? If you can, you should. And it doesn't have to be permanent. It could be just a break for a little while, but you need that separation. If you can't break up with them, it's your boss, it might be your own family, then you want to think about what boundaries and limitations you can set up. And what I mean by boundaries or limitations is it might be how much time you spend with the person. So as my client says, her two sisters are very toxic. When she's around them, when she feels, and for her, she feels the stomach like someone's in there wringing a washcloth. She goes, the minute I feel that, it's a sign that I need to leave that table. I need to go to the bathroom. I bring my own car. That's a boundary. I leave when I've had enough. I use my mind body to really be aware, okay, I'm having enough. It could be how much time you see somebody. So it might be you only see them once a season. Might be topics are off limit. You don't talk about politics, COVID, religion, whatever it is. But you want to think about what boundaries and limitations. And remember, one of the best words for boundary and self-care is no. No is an act of self-care, and no is a boundary. I know it's a hard word, but it works. And when you say no, don't explain. If you start explaining yourself, you're going to lose the battle. Once you start going, well, no, I wish I could, or well, I would if I could, you've already talked yourself into doing something you don't want to do. No, the end. No is a complete sentence. That's the one. The next is meaning and purpose. So no matter how old we get, even if you retire, you need meaning and purpose. If we just have socialization and positive emotions and stuff, that's great. But for a lot of people, they'll say, I feel like it's like a shallow happiness. I don't have that meaning. And again, as we hit like midlife and up, a lot of times our meaning shifts. So just remember that. And if you go through something traumatic, which COVID could have been that, we get what's called post-traumatic growth. So when you go through a tough situation and you've worked through it, which can take months, years, whatever it takes for you to go through it, when you get to that new norm, you get what we call this post-traumatic growth, where you start reevaluating who you are, what's important to you, because your whole world has shifted and changed. What are your new values, priorities? And for a lot of people, that's purpose. You know, after 9/11, I watched a lot of clients go from Wall Street brokers making millions to wanting to be a teacher. Just for that. COVID has done that for a lot of people too. I've seen a lot of people quit their careers and want to be nurses. It shifts you. So when you go through something traumatic, yes, you could have PTSD, and anybody who has PTSD still can have post-traumatic growth. So it doesn't mean you can't. It just starts the reevaluation of who you are. And so your meaning and purpose can shift with life. That's normal and fine. What was important to you at 30, that was your whole meaning, might not be now. Or you might have empty nests. Maybe your kids have left and you raised them and that was your meaning and purpose. And not that you still don't love them or a big part, but they were having their own life. And now it's what's important to me in my next chapter. But we all have to have that. Now, meaning and purpose doesn't have to be this huge thing. We don't all have to cure cancer. But you have to think about, what do I care about? That's the big word. What's my caring? What do I think about? How can I serve better? What can I do to make the world a better place? And not just for me, how can I make the world a better place for my kids, for the people I love? What brings me a spark? What energizes me? That's really important. So what gives you meaning and purpose? And then lastly is accomplishment. Meaning, have you set goals? Are you looking forward to something? Do you have action steps to reach those goals? And your goals should be intrinsic, meaning they're internal, things that are important to you. The why. When we have a goal, you need to know the why behind the goal. If you don't have a why, it's very easy to procrastinate or not get there. And the why has to be something intrinsic, meaning if it's extrinsic, it's title, status, power, money, things, greed. And again, that can give you a little bit of a short-term boost of happiness, but for long-term, we need to have intrinsic. What gives it meaning for you? So when we have accomplishments, when we start setting goals and we have little action steps, even little micro steps to get to that place, every time we hit one, we mark it off the list, we check it off, we get that sense of accomplishment and pride. So you always want to have something you're looking forward to. They could be personal goals, they could be professional. And also when we're doing goals, we're mastering skills, we're becoming expert in new things, and that gives us that accomplishment and pride too. So we need all of this. So the P is for positive emotions. The E is engagement, which means flow. I just didn't have enough room. The R is relationships, having positive relationships. The M is meaning and purpose. And the A is accomplishment. That's PERMA. And that is what we need to kind of be happy. And again, happiness can go up and down. It can fluctuate just like self-esteem. But we're not, oh, it sounded like is that wind? Oh, I was like, you guys can't hear that in Zoom, but it sounded like something was getting knocked in. So I was like, well. So outside of that, you have the happiness habit sheets that gives you the habits to be happy. And if you guys want it, just email, or I'll send it to Hava and she can send it to you, whatever's easier for you. Hi. So it's up to you what you want. And lastly, along with happiness, and then I'll wrap it up for questions, is mindfulness. Mindfulness is a huge part of positive psychology because, again, we need to de-stress. We're always going to have stress, but how we manage stress is so important. So mindfulness for natural ways. And mindfulness, just to put this out here, mindfulness is the ability to be awake and aware to everything around you. What do you see? What do you hear? But also what's going on in your mind. What are you ruminating? So it brings you to the present moment where you are self-aware to know, what am I thinking? Is that something I need to be thinking? Is this a belief that's serving me? You're aware of everything around you and you're in the present. And when you're in the present, you're your happiest, because when you're stressed, anxious, angry, hurt, whatever, you're either in the past, thinking about what you should have done, what you could have done, rehashing it over and over, or carrying all that baggage with you into the moment. If you're not there, you're in the future, where we get anticipatory anxiety. What's going to happen? The what if? And that keeps us stressed. But when I'm here, right in the moment, I'm my calmest, my happiest, my healthiest, my most creative, and my most productive. So if you can add a mindfulness activity into your routine, morning or night, and again, gratitude is already one, but adding maybe something in the morning, it'd be perfect. So being that we're here, I just wanted to put out, because we always forget about gratitude, definitely a mindfulness, so is prayer. So if you do prayer of any type, it doesn't matter when you do it, how long you do it, prayer is a form. And the other typical ones is breathing, meditation, yoga. There's a million intentional practices of being mindful. You could do a grounding, and a grounding, if you could just remember these numbers: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just using your senses. 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you smell, 2 things you touch, 1 thing you taste. Doesn't matter what order you do it in. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ground you right back to the moment. Or you could do deep breathing, 1, 2, 3, or box breathing, which is just a count of 4. The other one's a count of 3. Take a deep breath in through your nose for a count of 3 or 4. Hold for a count of 3 or 4. Exhale for a count of 3 or 4. A self-soothing exercise is self-touch. Believe it or not, that is self-soothing. Giving yourself a hug, rubbing your hands together. Do you ever see people, touch their neck? This produces oxytocin. So any kind of hugging yourself, or even if you want to do a loving kindness meditation with your hands on your heart, you feel your heartbeat, all of that self-soothes. And they're all forms of mindfulness that de-stress. So you can do the deep breathing, you can do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can give yourself a hug or any kind of self-touch that makes you feel good, whatever works. Some people even do a hair, like touching, or the face, whatever makes you feel relaxed. Doesn't matter. Yoga, prayer, gratitude, journal writing, whatever works for you. But adding in mindfulness into your routines. Okay. I should have stopped 10 minutes ago for questions, but I babble. Everybody knows that. So I'm going to stop now. Thoughts, questions, comments from Zoom or from here. How can I help, or what can I go over, or any questions or anything from?
Can you repeat again, Perma, what the P is what?
Oh, PERMA, sure. So P is for positive emotion. E is for engagement, which is flow. R is relationships. M is meaning and purpose. And A is accomplishment, mastery, skills, goals.
Can you repeat the 5, 4, 3, 1?
Sure. So it's just using your senses. And you could do it in any order you want. But I always say the 5 things you can see, because that's the easiest, what you see. So just starting with however you think about it, no pressure. 5 things I see. I see the red curtains. I see the computer in front of me. I see the pink tablecloths. I see the cup of tea. I see a black pocketbook. 4 things I hear. I hear the wind blowing. I hear the noise on Zoom. I hear upstairs noise, just doing it that way. 3 things I smell, 2 things you touch, and you can just touch. Maybe touch your jeans, touch your skin, whatever it is, and 1 thing you taste, maybe your cup of tea, your water. And it could be in any order to whatever sense you remember. And that's it. And it's a grounding exercise, brings you right here. And then the other simple is just a 1, 2, 3 breathe. So taking a deep breath in for 3 through your nose, hold for 3, and exhale for 3 through your mouth. And if you can close your eyes during any of them, obviously you have to be safe, in a safe environment, no driving, close your eyes, and you feel comfortable doing that, close your eyes, because that adds to the relaxation. And that's even more calming. But any of that works. Stretching too, just, stretching is another form of mindfulness. You don't have to work out. You can just stretch. So there's so many ways. Journal writing, which is just a brain dump. You just write whatever you're feeling without judgment, without spell check, grammar check, just to release.
So the mindful exercise is being present throughout the day,
Yep.
or doing the breathing
You're not going to be mindful all day. There's no way. We live on autopilot. Spend about 95% of our day on autopilot, meaning you just do and go as you used to. That's why you can drive to work if you drive and not remember the ride, but get there, because you do. You can talk to somebody you talk to every day on the phone, not remember the conversation because it's autopilot. So you want to have little moments where you come out of it. And usually it's just to de-stress. So we give a few examples. I'll have my clients, what I tell them. If you're at work and you're going to sit in rush hour traffic, sit in the car for a minute and do a minute or 2 minutes of mindfulness, just so you don't get stressed from the ride. If you've worked all day and then you come home and your house is going to be crazy with all the kids, sit in the car for a minute or 2, do some deep breathing. It's preventative, or it can be done when you're stressed, anxious, nervous, any of it. But we're never going to spend our whole day in mindfulness. That would probably put you in fight or flight because it would be so out of your norm that you would be like, stressed. But you want to have mindfulness pauses or breaks throughout your day. And you could just put them in knowing what's stressful for your day or what triggers your stress.
So what's the difference between flow and autopilot?
Flow and what?
Autopilot. If you're in autopilot, you don't feel it.
Yes, but autopilot, you're not immersed and challenged. You're just doing it. Like you're an autopilot when you make breakfast, right? How many times do you just go in, you're half asleep, you put the coffee machine on, the cup in, you put your sugar, whatever you do, and you don't even remember it, you just do it. And I did it so well the other day, I made coffee without putting the coffee cup in the coffee. All over. I was like, no, that woke me up at autopilot. Just want to share that. That's how much, but you just do it. I don't remember doing it. I make the breakfast, I make my dog's breakfast. I just do it. Like if I don't even think about it. That's autopilot. Brush your teeth, brush your hair, those things. When you're doing flow, you're engaged. All your attention, focus, you're immersed, you're challenged. With auto, you're not challenged on the way home. You're just driving. I mean, you might be if you have traffic, but if you're just on a regular ride home and you don't sit, you get home and you'll be like, did I pass the Rockaway Mall? Like you don't even remember it. So that's it. But autopilot's just your subconscious. It's how you spend most of your day.
What are the types of flows? What are the different examples?
Flow could be anything. So for some people, it's more on the artistic side, like art, drawing, painting, writing, reading, cooking, baking, something creative. For others, it's more of a sport or like walking, swimming, working out, that causes it. So you got to figure out what works for you, like what causes flow for you. Walking does for me. I don't know if walking does it for anybody else. When I walk, I get in flow. You do when you walk? Yes, that's a norm. A lot of people do. Reading, a lot of people do. Writing, it's what does it for you. So notice, do you love it? Are you a little challenged by it? And do you get that sense of timelessness? Because it's different for everybody.
It could be a job, is that right? Like whatever
Absolutely.
you do with your job, flow.
If you could be in flow in your job, yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, like I do this and I don't realize it. Yes. But if you have flow in your job, then that's where they say you kind of don't work a day. Like I always, like all of a sudden I looked and I'm like, oh, it's 8 o'clock. Like I have to stop talking now. I just get in it and I don't think about it. You get in the flow. So you might do that when you're advising people, as a rabbi. I'm not sure what parts give you the flow, if you do in your career. Because some people, it's not the career, it's more their hobbies. For others, it's career. And there's no right or wrong. It's just what does it for you. And adding it into your life. So, got it. Any questions from Zoom? I don't want to feel like I'm ignoring Zoom. Am I too close? I don't know what I look like.
You look beautiful.
I don't know, like a Zoom, you like your face gets up there. Do you ever notice like you just stare at your face and then you see all the imperfections? I have clients who won't even put their camera on. They're like, I don't want to see myself.
Hey,
Any questions in there on Zoom? Hi, guys.
Avi.
Hi.
Hi. If you don't have any questions, fine. I'm not putting anybody on the spot. Just wanted to make sure. Do you have any questions or thoughts? And again, if you want a copy of the handout, just email me and I'll send one to Hava as well too.
You know, I just want to make a comment. I grew up, my mother always, from when I was a little girl, said, as soon as you wake up, you make your bed. And I was raised like that. And I raised my children like that also. And then I heard a speech that I think a general gave at the West Point graduation, that he told all the graduates that they should make their beds as soon as they wake up, because then you've accomplished something.
It is, it works.
And right. And I said to my girls, you see, Grandma was right.
And you were. And I don't mean you have to tuck it in and do like the military, because no one's doing that. It could just be, you know, fluffing your pillows and putting the blanket on, and that does it. So
Right.
it works.
Right.
That general knew what he was talking about. It's the science behind
Right.
it.
And so did my mom. That's how I was raised.
Yes, before everybody else. It's true. Thank you for sharing. Well, thank you guys for being on here on Zoom. Sorry you guys missed us
Thank you
here,
so much.
but we're happy to see you on Zoom. And I hope you all have a great weekend and be safe with the snow. I can't
You
believe
It's always a
You
treat,
too.
Diane. Thank you so much. You're always amazing. I love
It's
when
always great.
it's always
Can-
like a
can-
burst of energy when I see you and hear you. And
Right.
even
it's
though, you know,
true.
I'm familiar with what you're talking about, each time you
Right.
say it, I find something new, and I can't wait to try it or work on it or share it. So thank you again.
Well, thank you guys.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here, and have a great weekend and stay safe. How did we go
And
from trees to snow? I'm just so confused.
I definitely would like a copy of whatever you're handing out.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so I'm gonna put my email on the chat if you want, or like I said, I'll send it to Hava. So whichever is easier for you.
Yes, send it to Hava and then we'll get it.
And some of you already have my email, so you could just email me. But here's my email, and I will send it to Hava too. Whatever you remember, whatever easier. Or if you have any questions you want to ask in person, privately, just email me.
Thank you.
So thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, this is a map. That's why it's the opposite. I'm so used to the other side, like with the dots, because I have a PC, I have an HP. Well, thank you guys, and thank you here in person. Thank you for braving the cold, because I know it's cold.
Have a safe trip home.
Yes, I will. You guys too, have a safe trip to your bedroom. A lot of traffic in the hallways. Used to love that. I'm going to work downstairs, what? It's true, you could have. It could be like the LIE, now you know, from Long Island. So automatically what I think of with traffic, I think of the LIE, Long Island.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
Okay, bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Diane.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
So I so like
Nope.
autopilot better than senile.
Not at all senile. It's your subconscious.
I just don't like, yeah, I'll be somewhere and I'll say, pass them.
But just think, if you did everything consciously, you would be overwhelmed. We couldn't do that. We couldn't handle it. Our brains would be overwhelmed. So you need to be able to do things on habit. And the things that aren't that important, you should do. But things that are really important to you, need that. That's why multitasking doesn't work. We're not good. Again, you can multitask, like make your breakfast, make your dog's breakfast, do your kids' lunch, but things that really need your attention and focus, one thing. We can't do it, and it stresses us out. So, and then we're angry at ourselves for doing it. Oh my God, you know, we knew. So you are not senile at all. We're just all on autopilot. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Drive safe. Question, sure.
I'm mom, and one of the things that I have been most concerned with, that I'm actually, like, what led me to counseling was I'm starting to see toxic tendencies in one of my children.
Okay.
It's freaking me out. because I don't want to have to cut her out when she's older. Like, I'm seeing these tendencies now. She's little, she's so little, and I'm like, oh my God.
How old is she?
She's gonna be 6. But I see the selfish behavior. I've seen it before. I mean, like, I recognize now, I've been in therapy for a while. I recognize now that this is behavior that I see in my older sister, and so there was some projecting, but I still see that.
Could be genetic too. She might have something that she can, we don't normally see something that young genetically. Usually it's a little later, but sometimes you do. And if your older sister has it, like there genetically could be something, because a lot of mental illnesses come across like that too. And again, so you might not have to cut her off. It might just be nipping it in the bud. She actually could start doing therapy, but they'll do it as play therapy. And it would be really good if you did that because you're noticing it, which is amazing that you're self-aware, 1, and 2, that you're admitting it. 'Cause parents will hold on to that, and then when they're older and they can't control it, or the kids are miserable or making the relationship miserable, they're like, I should have done something. You're seeing it and you're aware. I would ask your therapist who they recommend if you want. I can give you a few names, but I would definitely, and it'll just be play therapy. She won't even notice much, but it could help her before it gets, because the older you get, the harder it is to change it.
Right.
So now is the time. I know she's only 6 and people go that young. Yeah, if it's needed.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't want to be that person.
Right.
And I don't know if it's the age, I don't know if it's like a developmental process that they
She
all
could
go
change.
through.
Well, kids are naturally self-absorbed.
Right.
So just think, like, if you go up to a 5, 6-year-old and you're like, hi, they'll be like, hi, I'm wearing my favorite outfit. It's pink. You want to come see my room? I mean, that's normal. We don't think about it, but that's self-absorbed. We don't do that, right? Someone comes over, you don't go, do you like my outfit? Want to come see my room? We don't do that. I mean, you might if you have something brand new, but in general, you don't do it every time somebody comes over because we're not like that. But kids don't know the difference, and kids don't have coping skills. That's why counseling would help. So some of it she might outgrow. Some of it could be genetic. Like just any of that from, I don't know what it would be, so I'm not going to even hypothetically try and guess because she's only 6, but it could, we see a lot of that signs, and then you realize, oh my God, my mother had and it's just something, but if you figure it out early, then you'd be good. So I would start with the play therapy and take it from there, just like once every other week. And she'll probably like it. She'll probably think it's fun if she likes the person she goes to. So.
I had a kind of linked question to that actually, because you really made me thinking when you spoke about toxic people. In your experience, the toxic people, are they toxic to everybody around them, or they can be particularly toxic to some people versus toxic to others?
Right. So I never got to get into that. So this is the thing. What's toxic for me doesn't have to be toxic for you. What is toxic is because it triggers things for you. So I've said this before, and I'm always honest, I come from an abusive childhood. I can't stand self-absorbed, selfish people. It triggers me instantly. That's toxic for me. But I have friends who'll be like, yeah, they're self-absorbed, but I can still have fun and just, not be serious and blow it off. Doesn't bother me. Me, can't take it. So that's my toxic. For you, it might not be. And then there might be some other personality like, that's toxic for you. And I'm like, man, don't bother me. It's really about what you've been through because it triggers you. There's like something's poking at you, which could be a sign that you need to work on something and need to heal through. Absolutely. But that could always just be a trigger. We're always a work in progress. You could go to counseling for 10 years, feel fine, and then something triggers you 10 years later. So, but yes, there's usually a connection.
I had 2 people on my team who were extremely toxic for everybody. And it was like really interesting to observe. Like nobody could tolerate those people with all those behaviors you're describing. And they were always the victims, but yet everything was wrong around them. Everybody was mean to them. And I actually quit my job. I just couldn't stand it anymore. It was so bad for a year and a half that I figured, you know what? I just can't do this because it made me a terrible person at home. My poor kids were like constantly surrounded by stress mother. And I think it was the best decision I made in my life. But it were like those 2 distinct people. There was a third one which was toxic as well, but I didn't spend much time with that person because he was more remotely located. But it's interesting how some places kind of attract toxic people. Like I've worked for 18 years before that particular team I got, which I inherited. And 3 people on one team were toxic, 2 like extreme. And one actually we kind of came to the conclusion that she's bipolar. And, one of my direct reports was psychiatrist. So he kind of confirmed the theory of us non-psychiatry experienced people, but everybody thought the same thing. And we were guessing maybe she was not taking her pills, who knows?
But she
it
never
was
got help.
really difficult, and everything was wrong, like her husband was.
That's why I said mental illness, and I don't mean that in a mean way.
And I don't mean
I'm a
either,
therapist
but,
for years, but
it's really hard actually, because it was derailing the whole group of people.
one toxic person can ruin a whole work environment, just one.
And we had like, two for sure, and the third one, just because he was in New York all the time.
Right, you have to
He
deal.
was a little bit further out.
There was a natural boundary because he was
Yeah,
in New
but
York. Right?
still, he would make his share of contribution, but he could have.
Yeah, no, toxic, and there's no winning in a toxic environment. That's the hard part. Like people say, what do? You can't. There's not much you could do. You can learn to not take it personally if you can keep some distance and set boundaries, limitations. Sometimes you do have to walk away, and it's the only thing you can do. And there's just no, I wish I could say, a way around it, but it's not. Because the toxic people usually don't see themselves as toxic, so they're not going to change. Again, a lot of people don't change till they hit rock bottom, even though you could change without hitting rock bottom, but a lot of people just don't. So it's best to avoid if you can. And I'm glad that you quit.
You can, you actually can. I think it's not, you kind of, in the moment, you sometimes think, oh, what can I do? Like, I can't do anything. Well, you actually can. You just need to want to do something.
Unless you're married.
I have a quick question I'd like to ask, please. Maybe I missed your definitions when I originally got on.
Sure.
Did you define what happiness was?
So I didn't this time. I've done that
you started the lecture off, and I could be wrong, so you could easily correct me. What would it take to be happy? But you never defined what happiness was.
Because there's really no definition of happiness. So happiness is an individual thing. So happiness is about what makes you happy. There's no set definition. Success and happiness are individually defined. So it's something you have to
define word. Happiness has a definition if you look it up under Webster's dictionary. And I wasn't sure whether this is a lecture about what would make you happy. It's more of a lecture on what can give you a balanced life.
No,
and
those things gave you what cultivates happiness. We did go over
what is happiness. What is it? How do you define it?
For us, I don't give a definition of happiness because it's so individually different. You could look it up in Webster and do that, but for everybody, it's completely different. Like, you have to find out what brings you happiness. I can't define that for you. It's an individual thing. We know things that cultivate your happiness, and that's what we talked about tonight, is what cultivates your happiness. Positive emotions, having meaning and purpose, socialization. We know the top factors of happiness, but I can't tell you what makes you happy as an individual. We could tell you what cultivates happiness, because it is different for every person. Just like success. Success for somebody might be making a certain amount of money and having a certain title. For somebody else, it might just be their kids being successful. Everybody has such a different, so I can't give you exactly what happiness means, because it's different. It's an emotion that you feel that's cultivated. But by what? That's, we give you ways, but you pick and choose what works for you.
Well, I think it's a quintessential question. I think that you're right in the sense that
question.
Correct when you say that there are different elements to what gives someone a closeness or a direction towards happiness. But I think it's an important term to define, since you're giving a lecture on it. You're the therapist. I was just wondering how your happiness, because it sounds to me that you're defining happiness as an illusion, and everybody needs their own individual counselor and self-understanding to get a comprehension of what the meaning is behind happiness. I mean, I don't go through my life saying to myself, am I happy? What I do is try to balance my life out in a way where, and again, I don't want to define happiness for you, because you're the expert here. I am certainly not. So if I appear that way, please excuse me. But to me, the lecture wasn't really about happiness as much it was about how to have a balanced life where you feel that there's meaning to it and you don't get lost in your goals by having a self-awareness. I just didn't see the definition of happiness in your lecture.
You know, I'm sorry you didn't see that, but I actually started out with all the 5 things that give you happiness. That's what PERMA is. It gave you all the 5 things we need. I went over the top factor of happiness, socialization. I'm sorry you didn't hear it or didn't get it from what I said. And if that's the case, I apologize. But I don't think that's true. I did give about balance, but I did go over what happiness.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. I said the lecture sounds like by going through life, one should make sure their life is balanced. You know, they should be able to control their emotions and feelings, you know, not ruminate, redirect, different aspects of what meaning is. I definitely heard that. I was just wondering whether there's an actual definition that you might have, because, you know, does it really matter whether someone can define themselves as being happy if their life is balanced, even out, they're emotionally aware, and they have a sense of sensibility, and they, you know, can be meaningful in their actions and in their direction. So
And maybe that's the definition. That would be your definition.
No, that's how I heard the lecture. I have no definition here yet. I don't want to jump that gun. I'm trying to understand. You're the expert. I'm trying to understand. Maybe when I read the handouts, which I don't have, I'll better understand your definition of how you believe happiness should be. I mean, you know, I deal in criminal cases where, and I hate to say this as an example, but people murder because it brings them a sense of release and happiness, or, you know, joy. I should say joy, not happiness. So what I'm saying is, you know, happiness should have a definition where someone doesn't go into that direction, meaning if they're experiencing it and they think that it's bringing them joy, when in fact, that isn't really what's happening.
You're talking about an extreme, though. If somebody's murdering somebody, then they have probably antisocial personality disorder, and their happiness is not a true definition of what happiness is. And they're also mentally ill. You're going into a different direction. I'm just giving things that cultivate happiness. I will send you the handout, and hopefully that will make more sense to you. But I did go over ways that cultivate happiness. I'm sorry if you didn't hear them.
And I don't agree with, no, I absolutely made that clear in my original statements to you, that is what you did do. What would cultivate a balanced life? That I absolutely heard.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Different question. Thank you. I actually have a question for both of you. I found this extremely valuable. Are you going to do something like this, or maybe you have done something like this for our teens? Because I think for the teens, it's much harder than for us to come to this naturally. I think even as a 50-year-old, I didn't come to it naturally. And I consider myself a somewhat educated person, yet, you know, there were so many eye-opening things that you were talking about. I think our teens will benefit
five years ago.
time.
5 years ago.
You know, now,
Speed again.
these teens are living in a totally different world. And, you know, as a mother of 2 of them, I can say for the girls in particular in our teen group, it would be extremely valuable
We
exercise.
could bring
Whatever you call the definition doesn't matter. And just internalizing it and processing it, I think it would be very valuable. And I think you should take all your time, because it's really, you know, like,
No, I babble, and you know that.
They're listening of their attention span. Thank you. It's just so much, but I think whatever Dan says would definitely be integrated well into their life.
I think it would be really, because, you know, like even cutting out the toxic person of your life, it's not easy for us as grown-ups to do. For a 15, 17, 20-year-old, it's much harder to do. And to even recognize a toxic person in their life. So I think if there is any possibility, I would love for that to happen.
Well, thank you.